All right, here we go. This is Craig Kirk. This is broadcasting from home for the and through the Craig Kirk School of Law. And to the right of this page, you can see my picture. Can kind of get an idea who I am. And we're going to make the second and final installment of Hey, did you know Sabbath is not Friday to Saturday? Now, before I go on to do the video, I'd like to tell you something about Sabbath and about keeping Sabbath. I'm not here to say never do Sabbath, don't do Sabbath, when to do Sabbath. I'm not here to tell you any of those things. My job as a researcher, a student of law, student of the scriptures, is to point out fallacies and problems and facts that are not true. And that's what uh, the school's all about, is to busting the illusions that's been passed up from generation to generation, including the issue with the Jews. I'm not Jew bashing or anti-Semitic in any shape, form, or way. So don't think that. I don't care if you do Sabbath or never do Sabbath. I don't care if you eat kosher food, halal food, or eat pig. I don't care. It's your problem or your life, your choice. That's what strict liability is about. And I'm for your rights to make your decision. I support you 100%. I'm in your corner, and I'm not here to slander or bash anybody in this video. It is true. The first video was a little harsh, but I had to do that to break the illusion of certain things and certain teachings. And I don't generally hate anybody. I'm not mad at somebody. I don't have a vengeance or an axe to grind. I'm not doing that. That's not what I'm doing here. You build your wall. You build your castle, your empire, your knowledge base, your library. My job as the school and the researcher is to build upon that, to put you and to give you things and help you to get in areas that you've never gotten before, and to ultimately succeed in winning a sum of something, whether it be policy, change in life, protecting rights, money, whatever it is. That's my job. I'm not here to change your ideologies, change your beliefs. That's not me. You built that, you learned that, you know that. That's what you come to conclusion. That's fine with me. That's none of my business. I'm here to offer tools, and this tool here that we're talking about, the tools in this video here being two tools, the first video and the second video. I'm here to offer the tools that to identify the fallacies. We're going to talk about that. So Friday to Saturday is not Sabbath. Never has been, never will be. But it is true. It is Sabbath for you or anybody else, and even myself at one time. It is Sabbath, or was Sabbath at one time. Uh, and then I believed that, and I did that, and the Father didn't strike me dead. And the way I'm doing Sabbath now, the Father hasn't struck me dead, and He's going to come back and correct these Sabbath problems and all those things eventually when the Messiah returns. No big deal. Do Sabbath if you're doing Friday to Saturday. No big deal. I don't care. I'm not here to tell you to do it different. Do it my Sabbath. Do this Sabbath. I don't care what day you do Sabbath on. Not my business. I would hope you do a Sabbath on a day that you reckon to be holy, just, and righteous in your mind. That's what I'm hoping for. That's what I'm shooting for. Anything else, your choice, your decision. You have to pray about it, do your own research. But I'm here to offer the tools and the insight as to why I think and know that Friday to Saturday is not Sabbath. But that doesn't mean don't stop. That does not mean do not do Friday to Saturday Sabbath. That's not it. Okay. I did the first installment. Hey, did you know Friday to Saturday Sabbath is not correct? So forth. And you've probably seen the video. If you haven't seen it, it's on YouTube. Go to Craig Kirk School of Law on YouTube or whatever. You'll be able to find it there. And I talked about various and sundry things as to the flotation of the numbers and the days and the weeks. And so let's talk about that. We're gonna tackle that right up front. So let's go ahead and hit this. Okay, now I've been accused, and it's been accused, the lunar solar Sabbath keepers are accused of being on a floating Sabbath. That's the first argument, and it's insane on its face. And it's okay that you can make an argument or you may not make the argument. It doesn't matter to me. That's great. I don't care. But the argument is wholly defective on the facts in itself. Now remember, I'm not making my summary case. I'm arguing the opposing side's case, not my case. I haven't presented my case yet. I'm just simply going into the opposing side's case and looking at the facts that they present. And truthfully, nobody's really presented any substantive facts that really make anything. So I have to go assume all these facts that they're trying to allege, which they haven't done skillfully yet. Like I said, I don't care if you do Sabbath on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I don't care. Not my business. Not my case, not my issue. That's great. You did a Sabbath. That's fine. You reckon Sabbath on this time, that time. Your Sabbath could be at 9 o'clock in the morning, or it could be at noon to noon the next day. I don't care. You did a Sabbath. You believed it wholeheartedly. I'm hoping to put enough information in there so you can question that belief and think about it. Okay? Now remember, Genesis laid out Sabbaths specifically. King David had a Sabbath. Specifically. What Sabbath was it? The children of Israel in Exodus had a very specific Sabbath, and what was it? Okay? So let's go ahead and take a look at this. Okay, so you have the months, right? Would you agree there's months? There's these names, so-called names of whatever these names mean. They don't mean anything in terms of relationship to God's creation and calendar, but you have these names that we can all identify and say. And it's common between the world. The world uses the Gregorian calendar from the Julian calendar. It's common. Okay, so that's fair. No big deal. So you have these names. And then you have these names of these days, or whatever these names, series of names are. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Now, on the other video, I talked about the floating numbers. And so what we discovered it's really not a discovery, it's just a simple observation. But we'll present it this way. What we discovered was Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday stayed the same. Those things never change. But do you notice the numbers change from one month, so-called cyclical cycle. Notice the cycles of the moon are down here. Notice the numbers change. And the numbers are not in relationship to the day or the Sabbath, Friday to Saturday. And did you know the element of Sabbath for Friday to Saturday is what? The main element is sun is going down. Now there's three positions of where the sun is. I thought I'd share that with you. I don't have that right now. We're going to be talking about that later. But I want you to consider when the positions of the sun is. Now creation calendar, Troy Miller shows you the three positions. The question is, where do you reckon the sun going down? You have to decide that. That's not in this video, but that's a question that's going to be coming up, and it's a condemnation question. And that's just the simplicity of it. We've discovered things dealing with Sabbath that are just absolutely mind-blowing. Nobody's ever talked about. There's things with Sabbath that are just absolutely. I got pointed out to some of the things with Sabbath that are just shocking, and in my own research, I've discovered very specifically very shocking Sabbath information. It's never been talked about, as far as I can tell, on the internet. I haven't really seen anybody go this deep on Sabbath. And wait till you see that. That's going to be coming. But right now, we're going to focus on this. So notice Friday and Saturday stay the same, right? So the numbers, they float. This is floating. This is the original floating calendar. This Julian Gregorian calendar is the original floating calendar. Now, people like to flip the question and say that the lunar solar calendar keeping Sabbath is the floating calendar. But the moon and sun do the same thing all the time, year after year, decade after decade, century after century. It does the same thing all the time, generally speaking. It doesn't change. But in the Gregorian world, the calendar has to be modified and changed every 460 years or whatever it is. And we got a big change coming up here now. So notice the first days here. So if we was counting the first day, right? We'd count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The seventh day would be Wednesday. Sabbath would be on Wednesday. But we're not counting. So the relationship to numbers, to the names, series of names, has nothing to do with it. There's no counting here. You're not counting anything. You're not using any math or a mathematical equation to come to conclusion about this Friday to Saturday. So let's go to January. Look at February. February Sunday, first day. So 7 days would be Saturday. That'd be correct, wouldn't you agree? Check that out. There's 7 days. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7th day, Sabbath, rest. That's fine. I give that to you. Take a look at it. March, the same thing. We did this in the other video. Notice that now the numbers are in series or in concert with the days. You can say, see, there's Sabbath. But then we go to April when Passover's coming up here. And the first month or month of the year, which is not true. There's actually 12 months in Scripture. We'll be talking about that later. But we only look at the agricultural setting or time clock. So we ignore all the other times. And a lot of times we ignore the last 2 days. And we only say there's only 28 days in a Hebrew calendar, which is absurd too. But I'll show you that as well. So look here. April, Wednesday begins the first day. And on Tuesday, the following week, is Sabbath, 7 days. Notice it's not relationship to that. Saturday and 7 is not relationship. Shouldn't it be there every day? Shouldn't 7 be on Saturday every day? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's not. In May, Friday 1. First day of May is Friday, and the 7th day is on Thursday. Notice it's not relationship to Friday to Saturday that way. June, the same way. The 7th day is on Sunday. Now that's great for the Christians. There's our Sabbath. Or their Sabbath, not mine, but there's their Sabbath. They'd say, oh, that's our Sabbath. Okay, so there you go. July, the same thing. Tuesday is the Sabbath, but it's not in relationship to Friday to Saturday, so there's no number connection. So we're only looking at the calendar for a series of names. We're not even counting anything. There's no counting here. These names stay the same day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, time after time, century, millennia, right? That's the theory they're advocating. Now it's not true, but that's the theory they're advocating. So if we can find Friday to Saturday, we know the Sabbath is. We don't need relationship to the counting. But notice down here, the calendar people who made this calendar, they put this in here. Did you notice that? August, the same thing. Friday's the 7th day. Why isn't Friday the Sabbath? Because Saturday is the 8th. Same thing in September. The 7th day is Monday. The 7th day is Monday, Sabbath, but it's not relationship to Friday to Saturday, so there's no counting. See, can you see the pattern here? Can you see the pattern? Now notice they got this down here. And I'm going to show you something else too. See this right here? Now I'm in the Eastern time zone, or Eastern Standard Time Zone. So we have a calendar here. Okay? Notice these 2 days. You know these 2 days are in Scriptures? And this 3rd day here is in Scripture too. You know what that day is? We're going to be talking about this later, so I'm going to leave you hanging on that. These 3 days are in Scripture, and they're talked about in Genesis, they're talking about Exodus, they're talking about King David, and it's in the New Testament too. What are these 3 days in the New and Old Testament? Why are they there? Why is that? Now, I said that the Hebrews, they made a covenant pact, the death pact with Rome and the Vatican about the Wailing Wall in protecting the Jews in Jerusalem and the World Heritage Site of Jerusalem. And what about Old City Jerusalem, King David's city? Why aren't they down there? They're at the Wailing Wall, the Roman wall, Roman fortress wall, right? Still weeping and wailing over that contract with Rome. And I'm not here to disrespect. So, but I'm just pointing that observation out. And if I'm wrong, you correct me and tell me I'm wrong. Send me an email, commonlawradio@inbox.com. And I'll be glad to change or say whatever. It doesn't matter. We're just having a basic information series here. So notice there's 3 days here. And these 3 days are in Scripture. Keep that in mind. And they're very important, and they deal with something. And you find these days with manna too. When the Hebrews got manna, these days dealt with manna. Keep that in mind. And this is in Genesis too. You see the repeating number of sentence structure dealing with these 3 days too. In Genesis, it's there, and it's in Exodus too, and it's in the New Testament. And the Messiah let the people go out to get on Sabbath, Friday evening, Saturday evening, or even Sabbath. The Messiah himself had sent people out to get things to come back into the temple. They went out to the market during Sabbath. And we'll talk about that too. It's what we discovered. And you're going to ask, well, how's that possible? Well, we're going to talk about that. We'll talk about that in another video. But we're going to point that out and point that out as a plausible scenario or a definitive scenario. So keep in mind, what are these 3 days? What does this mean? And notice, let me close this down. And notice that the Friday to Saturday Sabbath keepers use the Gregorian calendar for their Sabbath, but when it comes to the feast days, they come down here and use wherever they reckon their feast day to begin or end, wherever they reckon. So they got two calendars. They got actually three calendars, but I won't go into the third calendar or talk about it. So the numbers don't mean anything in relationship to Friday to Saturday, okay? And when the feast day comes around, they're looking at the moon cycles. They're counting the moon cycles for feasts. So they got two calendars. Now this calendar here that they've agreed to use is primarily based off of contract, necessity, job, employment. And if you notice, whoever controls the calendar controls the world. The Jews, Muslims, Jews and Christians all use the Gregorian calendar to determine their feast days, their times off, and their Sabbaths, whatever. And I'm not against it. I'm just pointing out the obvious. It's just plain as day. Okay, it's not my business. I don't care if you do or do not. When you do it, I'm not here to say that. I'm just saying the idea that Sabbath is on Friday to Saturday is not factually correct. Okay, so we went and looked at all this. So we did this in the last video, and I don't need to go over this anymore. So I'm going to go ahead and X out of this. Now let's go ahead and open this up. Oh, by the way here, we're going to have some big changes to the site. This site's the first year up. We're going into the second year next year, and we're going to be changing the site around and some things. And there's some neat things coming up here. And we're going to be helping people obtain the classes in a way that nobody else has done. And we're going to have payment plans and all kind of things, if you will, and trade and barter and so forth. But keep that in mind. All right, let's go ahead and I want to shrink this down. Now we got a series of documents. There's about 19 in all. Okay. So I want to talk about fallacy. We're going to open the door. Now this is when you go into court and you're making an argument for something that you believe is correct. You're going to have to watch out. Okay. Fallacy is the use of poor or invalid reasoning for the construction of an argument. A fallacy argument may be deceptive by appearing to be better than it really is. Some fallacies are committed intentionally to manipulate or persuade by deception, while others are committed unintentionally due to carelessness or ignorance. Fallacies are commonly divided into formal and informal. Go to Wikipedia, check it out. We're going to X that out. We're going to go to the next one. Oh, we have to go back to the beginning here. Why it did that, I don't know. I should have just clicked on. False equivalence. False equivalence is a logical fallacy which describes a situation where there is a logical and a apparent equivalence, but when in fact there is none. This fallacy is categorized as a fallacy of inconsistency. It would be in the anonym of the mathematical concept of material equivalence. Characteristics. You can read that. Go take a look at it. These things are used in court. And the site itself, let's go back to the site real quick. What I've done in this site is to open a door into possible litigation in all kind of areas. There's pages that hasn't even been published yet, that's been unpublished. There's a lot of legal material in here embedded into let's go explore these legal areas. And that's why there's a lot of pages to the site. I want to keep that in mind. the site is an idea as to a doorway to go and get public records and so forth. And later on, we're going to be doing a lot of videos about that and a lot of other things too. I'm just now getting into the framework of start producing all these videos for YouTube and Villinia or whatever it is, the other um, broadcast or video company that holds the videos and so forth. We're going to have videos on here. And so let's go ahead and move forward. Daylight savings time, the next one. We're going to open this up. Daylight savings time. Now, I want you to do the math here. Now, I didn't finish the math last night. If it's 90 days, you move the clocks forward or back 1 hour. Does that sound right? Is that fair? Oh, that's too big. It says summertime, DTS, redirect here, other summers. Let's see. Daylight savings time, DST, or summertime, is the practice of advancing clocks, tampering with time, during summer months by 1 hour so that in the evening hours, day light is experienced later while sacrificing normal sunrise times. Take a pencil and paper out, take your calculator out. I didn't finish this. So it's 90 days. I'm going to just say 90 days. 1 hour a day for 90 days. That's 90 hours of time you lost or gained. So figure it out, 90 days. How much time is that? 90 hours. From November 10th to April, whatever. It's more than that, but say it's 120 days, whatever it is. Figure out, add every day that you do daylight savings time, add that hour from beginning to end. That's the number of hours that you've tampered with time. You're either gaining or losing something. Something that's not there naturally. Says, so keep that in mind. So daylight savings time. Now, why am I posting all this stuff? Or why am I posting this in this video or putting this in the video? Because we're going to be talking about the calendar. Calendar is important because this is part of the Gregorian system that everybody uses. Now remember, people rely on the Gregorian calendar for their paychecks when they pay bills, Christmas, Easter, Sabbaths, appointments, rents, whatever it is. The calendar comes into play. And then your paychecks, of course your paychecks, commerce. And then we depart from the calendar and we have our feast days. So we have a problem there. There's a legal fallacy there. Hebrew calendar. Open this up. In Hebrew or Jewish calendar, lunar solar calendar used today predominantly for Jewish religious observance, it determines the dates of Jewish holidays and the appointment of public reading of Torah portions, dates to commemorate the death of a relative, and daily psalms readings, among many ceremonial uses. In Israel, it is used for religious purposes, provide a time for agricultural, and is an official calendar of the civil purpose, although latter usage has been steadily declining in favor of the Gregorian calendar. See, we got two calendars, right? See how simple that is? So Sabbath is not on Friday to Saturday. This is just Wikipedia. All you got to do is look at the facts based on the facts itself. I'm going to X these out, X that out, bring this down. Daytime, Wikipedia. On Earth, daytime is roughly a period on any given point on the planet's surface during which it experiences natural illumination from direct or especially direct sunlight. Other planets that rotate in relation to luminous primary, such as the local star, also experiences daytime of a sort, but this article primarily discusses daytime on Earth. Daytime. What's causing daytime? The sun. Is that fair? So we're using the day. Well, this is daytime. And so we've been programmed to say, when does a day begin, right? When does a day begin? Now, we've been taught a day begins at midnight, right? Would you agree? Midnight. Midnight is the transition of period of time from one day to the next, the moment when the date changes. In ancient Roman timekeeping, midnight was halfway between sunset and sunrise, varying according to the seasons. Solar midnight is the time opposite of solar noon, when the sun is closest to nadir, and the night is whatever. So we have midnight. So everybody says, "Oh, it's a new day. It starts at midnight." When's a day start? When's a day start? A day starts when the sun hits the earth. Now remember, the Bible is predominantly a commonwealth, common law, agrarian system, by and large. Now there's other things in it too. There's monarchy and so forth, but by and large, it's a agrarian common law system. And when you read Genesis and Exodus, you see that the relationship between animals, like Cain and Abel, all that was agrarian society, not industrial age or electronic age or whatever. The impact Latin has been described as the age of the moon in days in January, and occur primarily in connection with the tubular methods for determining the date of Easter. It varies usually by 11 days from year to year because of the difference between the solar year of 365, 366, and the lunar year of 354 and 355 days. Now they say that it's only 28 days. That's what I think this number's coming out to, 28 days. So notice the difference. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and X that out. X that out. We're going to keep moving forward. New style dates. Old style, new style are sometimes used with dates to indicate whether a Julian year has adjusted to start on January 1, new style, NS, even though documents written at the time use of different starts the new year, old style, new style. Or whether a date confirms to the Julian calendar. Formally used in many countries rather than the Gregorian, closely related to double dating, which uses 2 consecutive years because of difference in starting date of the year, or includes both the Julian and Gregorian dates. Gregorian calendar replaced the Julian Catholic in Catholic countries beginning in 1582. This change was implemented in Protestant or Orthodox countries sometime later. In England and Wales, Ireland, and the British colonies, the change of the start of the year and the changeover from Julian calendar occurred in 1752 under the calendar. New Style Act, 1750 in Scotland, the legal start of the year had already moved to 1 January 1600. Did you catch that? Now watch this. Now what's floating here? Is there anything floating? From the Julian to Gregorian calendar. Got to open this up a little bit bigger here so I can see this better. The Gregorian calendar, also known as the Western calendar or the Christian calendar, is the most widely used calendar around the world. The Gregorian calendar, predecessor as the Julian calendar, was replaced because it did not properly reflect the actual time it takes the Earth to circle once around the Sun, known as a tropical year or solar year. To get the calendar back in time with astronomical reality, the number of days were dropped in the calendar, creating irregular months with only 18 days and odd dates of February 30th. When the Gregorian calendar was first introduced in 1582, some of European countries, however, many countries used the Julian calendar much longer. Turkey was the last country to officially switch to the new system in January 1922. That was the death of the Ottoman Empire. Notice it's a reversion right back to the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire died when? 1917. And it formally died by treaty, I think it was 1927, around there. Notice all the year of the Great Depression and the Federal Reserve Act and all these things coming in. Did you notice that? The switch around the world. France, Italy, Poland, Portugal, Spain, blah, 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 Germany. I'm not going to read all this. United States, UK, Turkey, Greece. So there's the Gregorian or the Julian calendar is floating around. Solar calendar. Ready for this? A solar calendar is a calendar whose dates indicate the position of the Earth on its revolution around the Sun, or equivalently, the apparent position of the Sun moving on the celestial sphere. Astronomy, main article. The natural science of astronomy is study of celestial objects, observations, and phenomena in the night sky. The ancient discipline of astronomy is the key method of calculating date and time. The star in a solar system is the source of light which creates the stellar day and rotation period of orbiting planets, regulates the seasons on the planet's surface, and combination of monitoring and recorded by a calendar. Tropical calendars. Tropical solar calendars, I'm sorry. If the position of the Earth is in its orbit around the Sun is reckoned with respect to the equinox, the point at which the orbit crosses the celestial equator, then its dates accurately indicate the seasons. That is, they are synchronized with the declination of the Sun. Such a calendar is called a tropical solar calendar. The duration of the mean calendar year, such as calendar approximate sum of the tropical year, usually either by mean calendar tropical year or the vernal equinox year. The following are tropical solar calendars: the Gregorian, Iranian, Indian, Julian, and Coptic calendar. Gregorian calendar. There's two issues there. Two issues to be reckoned by. One, it's a solar calendar. It's not a lunar solar, it's a pure sun calendar, tropical calendar. Two, the Friday evening, the Saturday evening, Sabbath keepers are looking for the sun to determine when the Sabbath begins. The sun is determination of this the sun is the determination of the Sabbath beginning. Think of that. So you're on a Gregorian solar calendar and you're using the sun to determine when your Sabbath begins. Now, as we dig deeper in these facts, which I'm not going to, you can do it yourself. You'll start to come to realization there's something wrong here. So using the sun as the Sabbath time to commence Sabbath. The sun is the commencement. The going down of the sun is the commencement of the Sabbath. But the Gregorian calendar is a solar calendar. Do you think that's right? Is that fair? All right, let's move forward here. UK legislation, Calendar New Style Act 1750. New Style Act 1750, Chapter 2324 GO2. Whereas the legal supplementation of the year, I didn't say it right, but of our Lord in England, according to which the year beginneth on the 25th day of the March, hath been found by experience to be attended with diverse inconvenience, not only as it differs from the usage of neighboring nations, but also from a legal method of computation in Scotland and from the common usage throughout the whole kingdom, and thereby frequent mistakes are occasioned. Now watch this. Now I have a theory before I ever read this. I've been saying this for a long time, and they actually proved my theory here. So if the Gregorian calendar is the true, and the Julian and the Gregorian calendar are the true floating dates, true floating calendars with those floating dates all around, if you want to call them dates. I don't even know what to call them. They're really not a date, but just for sake's argument, we'll call it a date. We'll call it a time, whatever. Everything is predicated, every contract, every nation, every empire, every time, everything is written on paper with a Gregorian date or a Julian Gregorian date is an error. See, and I said this long before I ever read this. Look here. And it's defective because you don't know when it begins. Frequent mistakes are occasioned in the dates of deeds and other writings. This dispute arises therefrom. And whereas the calendar now and used throughout all the Majesty's British Dominion, commonly called the Julian calendar. Now, the Gregorian calendar has the same problem. It's just the Julian calendar appears to have a worse problem. So everything that was written in contract, time, date, and everything, whenever the Vatican is going to change the calendar, the empires in the West are going to fall because they're predicated on this garbage. Keep that in mind. Okay, there's an Easter Act, date 1928. Easter Act deals with time and the calendar. Open this up. This is UK. Scrolling down. Easter Day shall in the calendar year next but one after the commencement of this act and in all subsequent years be the first Sunday after the second Saturday in April. What's missing in the relationship to this? And Section 3 of the Calendar New Style Act, the new calendar tables and rules annexed to that act, and Section 2 of the Calendar Act 1751 are hereby amended and shall be read and construed accordingly. What's missing here? Easter Day shall be in calendar year next but one after the commencement of this act, and in all subsequent years be the first Sunday after the second Saturday in April. What's missing? If the numbers are floating around all over the place, they're just counting in names, ain't they? Notice there's no numbers attached to this. You notice that? I talked about that. Did I shut that out? I sure did, didn't I? Yeah, I shut that out. So notice, well, I'll just open this up. Notice the numbers are floating around, right? Numbers float around to the names, series of names. Notice there's no numbers attached to that. So they want to give it a name. They want to try to give it a year, 1928. Well, whatever, Easter, the date of Easter Day. But notice there's no numbers attached to that. They're just using a series of names floating. That's a big problem, because that's what the Saturday Sabbath keepers do, and I did that myself for a long time. That doesn't make any sense. Factually, that's insane on its face. Okay, civil time. Civil time. In modern, this is Wikipedia again. You can see that, Wikipedia. In modern usage, civil time refers to statutory time scales designed by civilian authorities, not by God, or to local time indicated by clocks. Modern civil time is generally standard time and time zone at a fixed offset from Coordinated Universal Time, UTC, or the Greenwich Mean Time, GMT, possibly adjusted by daylight savings during part of the year. UTC is calculated by reference to atomic clocks and was adopted in 1972. Older systems use telescope observations. Telescope observations? Sun and moon, stars, heaven, God. In traditional astronomy usage, civil time was mean solar time reckoned from midnight. Before 1925, the astronomical time was 0000, meant noon, 12 hours after the civil time, which meant midnight. Which is the floating calendar? Which is the floating calendar? Daylight savings time. We went over this. Daylight savings time again. I'm hitting this again. Summertime is a practice of advancing the clocks during summer months. Which is the floating calendar? Calendar reform. Historical reform. Historically, most calendar reforms have been made in order to synchronize the calendar with the astronomical year, either solar or sidereal, or a synodic month, and lunar solar calendars. Now in Genesis, God talks about a lunar solar calendar. He talks about it in Exodus. King David talked about it, and it's in the New Testament. Most reforms for calendars have been to make them more accurate. This has happened in various lunar solar calendars, and also Julian calendar when it was altered to the Gregorian calendar. Fundamental problems with the calendar are that the astronomical year has neither a whole number of days nor a whole number of lunar months. Neither does the lunar months have a whole number of days. Now we're going to talk about that. This is the funniest thing I've seen because here's the problem. Here's their problem right here. See this right here? They can't figure this out. And this is in the Bible. This right here is in the Bible. And this does this every month just about. Let's see what it does next month. Oh, look, it does it there again. But notice it's 2 times here and here. And notice strict liability. Christ got on the cross. He's put on the cross and crucified. Strict liability. You have strict liability for yourself. And your Sabbath is in a place that has this. But you might be up in Canada and you don't have this. Or you might be down in Texas. You don't have this. You might only have one of these. Or you might have 2 of these. And a first work day of the work week. Nobody knows what's going on here. And this is in the Bible. So I'll just leave it there. They can't figure it out, and they don't know how to adjust it. They don't know how to adjust the calendar for that. The truth is, when you get on the heavenly calendar or God's calendar, life changes. You're in a whole different paradox, a parallel, a whole different world. Life is vastly different than the rest of the world. Now, I'm not telling you to do that. You can do Friday to Saturday. I don't care when you do Sabbath. If you do it or don't do it. I hope you do it, but if you don't, it's not my business. I don't care. I don't really give a rat's rectum. As George Gordon would say, I don't give a rat's rectum. Not my business. Don't mean anything to me. But if you want to talk more about it, let me know. We'll talk privately. Okay, so we went through that. You can see that. They have a problem. They can't figure it out. They're using satellites and phase, whatever they're doing. So I'm not going to make this too arduous. We're getting towards the end of the video here. So I'm going to X this out. Now watch this. Is it time to overhaul the calendar? Expand this up. Advocates of calendar reform think there are better ways to mark time than our 400-year Gregorian calendar. Forget leap year months with 28 days. That's the 28-day program, and your birthday falling on a different day of the week each year. Researchers at Johns Hopkins University in Maryland say they have a better way to mark time, a new calendar in which every year is identical to the one before. Their proposal calendar overhaul, largely unprecedented in 430 years since Pope Gregory the 13th, whatever, instituted Gregorian calendar we still use today, would divvy out months and weeks so that every calendar date would always fall on the same date of the week. Christmas, for example, would forever come on Sunday. The calendar I'm advocating isn't nearly as accurate as the Gregorian calendar, said Richard Henry, whatever his name is, at Johns Hopkins, who has been pushing the calendar reform for years, but it's far more convenient. The trouble with designing a nice regular calendar is that each Earth year, remember the relationship to the Earth is in relationship to the moon and sun. So when the Sabbath and the feast keepers, the Hebrew feast keepers, come up and look to the moon and sun for their feast days, the Earth is a part of that. Somehow or another, in our minds, we detach the Sabbath from God's timepieces. And then we want to accuse people of worshiping the sun and moon, but in reality, they're using a solar tropical calendar to determine. It's insane. I mean, when you look at the arguments on its face, it doesn't make any sense. The arguments don't make any sense because you're divorced from reality. You're not factually looking at the evidence before us. I get summary judgment. You lose the case. It's 365, 24, 22 days long. Leaving extra snippets of time that don't fit nicely into a 24 hours days. Into a 20 into a cycle of 24-hour days. I'm sorry. If this time isn't somehow accounted for, the calendar drifts relatively to the seasons, and the next thing you know, Christmas Day is coming after the spring thaw. See this right here? They don't know how to count this, or this. They don't understand what's going on here. Here's the snippets. Here it is. Here's the answer right there. Bingo. Now, Troy Miller on Creation Calendar pointed this out. You call him and ask him for his discs. And this is in Genesis, and this is in Exodus, too. These days here in Exodus. They talk about this. God talked about this in Exodus. It's there. It deals with manna. When you look at it, it's just there. Alright, so the Gregorian calendar deals with this by adding extra leap year day to February about every 4 years, correcting a seasonal drift. What's the original floating calendar? The Julian and Gregorian calendar. Right? The Julian and Gregorian calendar. United States Code. United States Code. United States Code's subchapter Standard Time. Congressional Declaration of Policy adopting observance of uniform standard of time. Authority of the Secretary of Transportation. Commerce. Advancement of time or changeover dates. Commerce. Zones for standard time, interstate or foreign commerce. Duty to observe standard time zones. Commerce. Designation of zones and standard times. Commerce. So we have a floating commercial calendar. Floating commercial calendar. Now, what was it? Hislop, the two Babylons, he talked about they so hated, the old Hebrews hated the scriptural calendar, the biblical calendar, and that they had to devise and create a calendar that we got. Now, they did it with the Vatican. They came up, they agreed to do this. That's all in agreement. It's nothing secret. It's just there. You got to go research it. Go to the Jewish encyclopedias and so forth. Troy talks about it. Alexander Hislop talked about it. The Vatican talks about it. Everybody knows that everybody's on the Gregorian calendar doing Sabbath. No big deal. See how simple that is? That's a fact that you can't defeat, and it's just there. Like I said, I'm not for or against you doing Sabbath. I'm just proving the Sabbath from a biblical, Heavenly Father, holy set apart scripture. Sabbath is not on the Gregorian calendar. Can't be, never. Can't not never be on the Gregorian calendar, ever. God created the heavens and the earth, the moon and sun, and the earth in relationship. And they have a relationship. There's an evidentiary preponderance, beyond preponderance evidence, factual evidence, relationship as to time. God created it. And he bumped the sun, and he bumped the sun and moon or whatever. Jericho, the long day. And we're going to be talking about that. And we're going to be talking about, what is his name? I got his name. Eckert's treatise on calendars. I'm going to show you an Eckert. When I go through there, Eckert didn't have a clue where Sabbath was. There's a lot of vain dribblings. Eckert. And we was taught look at Eckert's treatise. Look at that. Woo, that doesn't mean anything. Eckert admits categorically he doesn't know when Sabbath. He can't calculate it. But it's in Exodus. It's in Genesis. And Messiah talked about it. And he said, isn't a day 12 hours? It's in the New Testament. We're going to be getting to that, though. But that's fine. So like I said, I'm not opposed to doing Sabbath, when to do it, when not to do it. I'm just telling you, it's not Friday to Saturday. Just the facts don't support the case. Now, you can do it Friday to Saturday. You can do Sabbath Friday to Saturday. I don't care. Don't mean anything to me. If you reckon Sabbath Friday to Saturday, that's great. I'm glad you're doing it. I'm not opposed to it. I don't care. All right, let's go to the last one. We looked at the website. Again, you can see the numbers rotating around all over the place. The series of names stay the same. They don't change, but the numbers do. So the first day of the first work week, 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 first day of the first work week should be what? First day, number one, Thursday's a Sabbath. Not Friday to Saturday is a Sabbath. The math and the numbers do not relate to Sabbath period. That's the truth. And I have some objectors. They say I'm in competition or whatever, but that's not even. There's no competition. The only competition I have is the government. That's my total competition. I have no other competition whatsoever other than the government itself. What I'm doing, nobody's doing. It's a unique, totally unique by itself, and keep that in mind, if you will. Pass it around, tell people as well. All right, so we're done with that portion. Now we're going to watch a little video. I'm going to go over here to Sabbath. Go over here to the vids. Go over here to second vid. And let's see. Okay, here we go.
Have you not read those who were with him, how he went into the house of God? By the way, this was a lunar who did it. Have you not read what David hungry and those who were with him, how he went into the house of God? By the way, this was a lunar Sabbath when David did it. Have you not read what David did when he was hungry and those who were with him, how he went into the house of God? By the way, this was a lunar Sabbath when David did it.
By the way, it was a lunar Sabbath when David did it. What do you think about that? Anyhow, when you see the video, let me know what you think and ideas and so forth, and shoot me an email if you will. Give me a call. Phone number 740-824-4850. 740-824-4850. Common Law Radio at inbox.com. Common Law Radio at inbox.com. By the way, I'm going to be making available in a very unique way that many students can get to classes. So we've achieved our objective. We've overcome some things, and we are making profound changes. Our goal is to help you what you built, not tear it down, but to help you build upon what you know and have done. We're not here to tear nothing down. We're here to build and exploit to the max for your benefit. That's our job. All right, this is the end of the last and final installment. Sabbaths on Friday to Saturday. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll have this uploaded tonight, and we'll be pretty much done with this video, and we're going to be doing a lot more information. So please stay tuned, check back, and we're going to be pounding a lot more from this point forward. We're going to be pounding a lot more video and information, broadcasting and so forth. And once I get the live broadcasting going, you'll be able to tune in. And I'm looking for advice from you. I need advice. I'm thinking about starting a atonement ministries. I did this before and I got some good feedback, but I wasn't sure I should do that. And I want you to tell me, do you think it's a good idea? When I reckon Sabbath, we'll be live for atonement meetings and Sabbath and scriptures. We'll be talking about it, and it won't be in a challenging, argumentative way. It'll be in a passive, loving, Christ way. And this video here, some will say that it's argumentative or hostile, and that's not true. It's not my goal. But keep that in mind. We're trying to consider doing an atonement ministry, and I'd appreciate some feedback on that because it's important to me, and I'm hoping, and I need people to just tell me, is it a good idea, a bad idea? I shouldn't be doing it. Just tell me what your thought is, and think about it with much intensity. No knee jerking, please, because what you say will have a profound effect on my life and the school and the idea of the atonement ministries. I appreciate you. God bless all you people. And let's go ahead and close it.